we should have some level of government growth triggered by government.
Still by government,
yeah,
not by the private
government.
sector.
Yeah, not by the private sector. But I can also assure you that, look, if we really want to resume growth in this economy, it's the private sector that will drive growth. The effect of government investment is highly limited. When you develop an economic framework that encourages the private sector to access credit at a relatively good rate and invest, you are likely going to see more growth than if the government is the only one driving growth. What we are going through today in this economy is that the private sector has been denied of access to credit, and where that access is available at a very exorbitant rate. And we are seeing contraction, sharp contraction in the private sector. Virtually all the monies in the economy are going to the public sector. We are seeing, you announced bond offer issues today and treasury bill issues today. The treasury bills are being issued about 18.6% for 364-day bills. It makes no economic sense for any economic agent to go into productive activities that has high risk of failure when you can as well do nothing and give your money to the federal government and get 18.6%, which effectively, because an upfront interest instrument, effectively is about 20%. So if you continue to crowd out the private sector, you're not going to see economic recovery. You're not going to see sustainable growth. You're not going to see the employment creation that the government has been angling for. So we need to look at the structure of our economic plan and decide what's paramount to us. Is it to transfer the entire liquidity of the economy to the public sector and hope the public sector will do a few infrastructure, or allow the private sector to access credit at a relatively good rate so that productive activities will resume in the private sector?
And talking about resuming productive activity in the private sector, we're also looking at what this budget has, the framework in terms of delivering on jobs and growth, particularly jobs. We know that the federal government has started, another scheme, along with the UWIN project. So we have the NPAIS. And in the 2017 budget, that's also, another aspect that was actually talked about, focusing on 500 billion naira intervention fund. So that will also continue in 2017.
Well, I'm happy with what the government is doing, but I can also tell you this, it's a drop in the ocean. There's no way the government can actually be the major driver of employment. For the government to drive employment, it needs to create an enabling environment for private sector to thrive. How many people can the government employ in the first place? And these are gross underemployment, because you end up recruiting a graduate and giving him a job that is far beneath his skills level, just because he needs to eke out a living and he will take that job. If you have the appropriate framework, economic framework, the key thing is that the private sector should be the hub of employment creation, should be the one expanding, and not necessarily the government giving out what you may actually call, for me, they are not sustainable employment. The UWIN program is very good because it's actually an entrepreneurial development program. But the other employment schemes that the government talk about are, for me, ephemeral, because they are not enduring. They need not give the job satisfaction the workers, the citizens need. People are not employed in jobs that meet their skill requirement. When actually there's an alternative. An alternative is there for us. Create an enabling environment. Let's create an environment that encourages the private sector to grow. And it's not rocket science. What's our monetary policy? What's our fiscal policy? What are the trade policies? And now what are FX foreign exchange policies? If you have a comprehensive and integrated policy environment that encourages free flow of capital, access to credit at a relatively good rate, then you're going to see the private sector resume productive activities. Today, I can tell you, Harriet, that a lot of private sector operators are shutting down. That's a fact. For every private sector operator that shuts down, maybe you are talking of 10 job losses. Would the government be able to recruit that number of people every day? It's not possible. And I can also tell you that the dreams of average Nigerian youth is not to work for government. Because, like I said, you don't get job satisfaction most of the times when you work for government. A lot of time, the jobs that are given to you are kind of political favors. You don't express yourself to realize yourself fully. I'm not saying there are not exceptions in some government agencies, but the reality is that the average Nigerian youth will want to work for a private company that has prospect of growth. And the government, unfortunately, the policy environment today is killing the private sector. If we're not careful, we're gradually shutting down this economy with respect to the private sector. When private sector can access credit, when demand level in the economy is very low, what is happening is people are folding up and shutting down. And those who have money left are buying up treasury bills and federal government bonds and can as well retire to their village and collect their coupon every 6 months.
2017 is going to be a very strong defining year for a lot of countries, including Nigeria. And in line with conversations we've had with regards to economic growth, job creations, and reflating the economy as a whole, are you bullish, brutish, or bearish, or indifferent?
Okay, what I will tell you is that globally, the global economy would see high level of growth. And why do I say we will see high level of growth? We have seen oil price recovering. It's not going to get to the point where it begins to hurt the oil consuming countries. If at the range of 50, 55, 60, both oil producing countries will resume growth and oil consuming countries will still sustain their growth. Barring any drastic change in policy environment in the US with the incoming president, which seems to be focused on a more nationalistic economic policy orientation. Barring any drastic shift, we should see the global economy resume growth. But what happens to each national economy will be dependent on what policy environment that you have. Take for instance the Nigeria case. At $55 per barrel, if we should address the endogenous factor, which is within our control, the issue of the Niger Delta, and we resume production of let's even say 2 million barrels per day, we will largely address our FX problems. If we address the FX problem, you restore liquidity in the FX market. Importers will access raw materials for resumption of their activities. Then we need to change our monetary policies such that liquidity will be restored into the economy, into the local economy. We need to rebuild or strengthen the banking industry. Normally, in a crisis situation, the first point of repair is the banking sector.
Johnson Chukwu, CEO of Carry Assets Management, thank you so much for joining us on the program and sharing your perspectives.
My pleasure.
Business Morning continues after now. Stay with us.